on Tuesday, June 14th at 7. We're at the Twinsburg Government Center. I'd like to call the City of Twinsburg Caucus meeting to order. Shannon, would you call the roll?
Mr. Scafidi?
Here.
Mr. Fury?
Here.
Mrs. Labby? Here. Mr. Bellin?
Here.
Mrs. Walker? Present. Mr. Post?
Here.
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Next we have presentations. Our first presentation tonight is from, we have Eric and John Burns here with the Independent Energy Consultants. They're going to get up and they're going to talk about our gas application program. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having us in this evening. A week or so ago, we met with Mary Yates and Mr. Safidi to talk about the renewal of your natural gas aggregation program. That program has come to the end of its current term here in October, so we issued our RFP to all eligible suppliers to support its continuation. As I mentioned, we had that review with the mayor, Sam. We received offers back from multiple suppliers, went through all of those, and following, our presentation review, our recommendation was to enter an agreement with IGS Energy for a 4-year term. IGS Energy presented the lowest overall proposal, so we recommend you go with that. We're asking the city to agree to a 4-year price formula that allows you to set a rate as you wish, in that 4 years, whether that's one 4-year rate or, 4 12-month rates. Allows you that flexibility to, with our added assistance, watch the market and, make decisions that, feel best for the city. These programs, been going with Twinsburg for quite a number of years here. It's provided a, valuable option for your residents, but that's all this program is. It's another option for residents to consider. That's what they asked for when they passed this on the ballot back in 2002. So, that's what we've, put together here with Sam and the mayor. We've asked them to, pass an ordinance, to authorize them to enter an agreement with IGS Energy for a 4-year term. And the rate will be set, down the road here prior to Labor Day. At that time, we'll provide the city with, news release, letters will go out to residents. They have the 21-day opt-out period to decide whether or not the, new term is right for them and their families. And, at that point, they'd either, leave the program or continue on beyond October 2022.
Is there a penalty if you leave the program?
There is not. This program has no early termination fees, so it's a option that you can choose, and if down the road you decide otherwise, you're free to leave without any penalty.
Is there
Is there a projected price based compared to what it is right now?
The market, I don't think will be a surprise to you. Like many things, energy's, risen considerably. We're coming off the lowest rate in your program here, $2.82. So anything is going to be, higher than your lowest rate. We wish we could set a new low, but that's not, the case this time. As I mentioned, markets are fluctuating up and down. Since we, presented last week. Right now, we think we're probably in the $6 to $7 range, but that, will change day to day.
Is there a maximum time you could reset that fixed cost over the period of this 4 years? Do you get 2 or 3 shots, or if you want to do it 5 times?
You could, with that formula, it allows you to set, up to 48 individual prices if you wish. So if you wanted to lock in, the first, 6 winter months and, reassess, after that, that's, your option. So we believe these pricing formulas allows, the city a great deal of flexibility, with our help to, watch and as markets, are volatile and evolve, make a decision that, provides value.
The rates are fluctuating now. When does the city have to?
Labor Day would be our target.
By Labor Day?
Yes.
We have till then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it could go up or down, maybe anywhere on the scale at this point.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it goes down, but
Right.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it
Yep.
happening.
And like I said, things may go up or down, but again, it is just another option for residents. It does never guarantee savings by participating in the program. It historically has been a very good option, but that is your residents' ultimate decision whether or not it's right for them.
We've been very fortunate with this program, the last few years, so looks like that might change a little bit this year.
We would need to go ahead and pass legislation to lock in agreement to the formula. and then you guys would then start watching the market. And it could be anywhere between now and September that if there's a good spot in, between now and then, they would contact us, and based on the formula that we agreed to pass legislation on, that we would lock it in.
Correct.
I've been following this since the beginning. We do not, the city doesn't pay a fee for this. Direct Energy gets, we're going to make a very small percentage off the people that are listed in this program. The benefit of this is that there is no early termination. We'll talk about gas and electric later this evening, but most other, if I went to IGS on my own and left that contract before it was up, I'm sure that there's $100 early cancellation fee. So this gives flexibility to go in and out of the program. And as long as you can reset that rate, that gives you flexibility to do it. Typically, if you look at your gas bill, you don't use hardly any gas in June and July. You got those 4, December, January, March, April, December, January, February, and March, probably 75 to 80%. And if you're on a variable, that's when it's highest. So you have a fixed rate option, and if we can reset it throughout the year, there's really not a downside. If you can keep the best rate, and if it goes lower, we can reset. Right now, gas is going, gasoline was $2 2 years ago, it's $5.09 right now. Natural gas is kind of following the same thing, and so is electric. So, when we talk about how to look at those, and we'll
Council, anybody else? Any questions? Thank you very much. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Be working with you and the mayor is down the road here. Thank you.
Okay, we look forward to it. Okay, any discussion items? I guess there's not. Next, we have audience participation.
First, we have Bruce Baldwin.
Okay, good evening, council. Just happened to notice on the way in that I know 4 or 5 months ago I said that that sign in front would be taken care of. It says no council meeting tonight. I guess you have to be going that way. It's only on one side. I was told it was going to be changed at least 4 or 5 months ago. So it just kind of reminds people, Good evening. First of all, I'd like to give thumbs up to the 3 who voted yes on the Twinsburg rubbish, and thumbs down to the 4 who voted no. With a holiday, rubbish would be picked up on Wednesday and not Tuesday. Part of Cannon Road didn't get picked up on Wednesday, so I waited one day Thursday. I called and talked to 7 different people. I just kept down the phone. The guy said it'd be picked up that day, so I put mine back out again. The problem is I called again and it didn't get picked up until a week after, which was actually six days, not 7 days. And I picked up on Thursday. Part of Cannon Road was not picked up. I can't figure out how they missed part of the road and picked up the other. I guess maybe because I lived there, I don't know. And second, I was asked 2 weeks ago, the Blue Top Motel, the lawn was mowed. Property next to it wasn't mowed. You told me that the guy owns the same property. Part of the lawn was mowed. It's over a foot high now. Okay.
We can have it looked at. That's all I can.
I'm sorry.
Our building department monitors multiple lawns, so we'll have.
Well, I'm glad they don't monitor mine. Okay. I also remarked about Twinsburg properties have not been mowed, and whenever responsible, took a good look around. How many do you see? It's the height still 8 inches. I have complained about Route 91 south traffic. What a traffic jam and polluted. Solon, Twinsburg had the same problem. They took care of theirs. I talked to somebody. I don't know what the way they engineered it. I can't believe it worked out so well. It must have taken some planning, but was it really worth it? Okay, thank you very much. Take care of yourself and each other. Good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baldwin.
Next, we have Mark Sikowski.
Yeah, Mark Sikowski, 2445 Old Mill Road. Come talk about Old Mill Road Gumbo project. Looking at it, looking at your resolution and everything else, I don't understand what the big emergency is for this project. It says in the resolution that it's for the grading plan, but then again, it's an emergency, but there's no tenant for it. The tenant backed out months ago, unless there's new news that there's a tenant back in there.
We will be removing that emergency.
Well, great, I'm glad to hear that. It's the same thing, not even all the plans have been approved. So technically, your approval should be the last approval to make sure that everybody else is in line, whether it's Summit Soil, Ohio Corps of Engineers, EPA, everybody else. Once everybody has their approvals, then I think then you guys should look at it and say, okay, then we can look at this in the big picture and say, yeah, let's make an approval on this. Because everybody else says it's okay. Not approve it and say, oh, we'll wait and see what you guys have. Second thing, and I've said it 3 times, I've sent you emails on it. I said it last time we were here. What's Plan B? What is going to happen when we lose our water or the water is compromised? Now, I understand the EPA did say that, okay, the water's not going to be compromised. But you know what? There are experts out there, and Dave Post even says, we listen to our experts, which is fine. But are they right all the time? Do we listen to meteorologists every single day? Are they right all the time? Or do you think there's a 50% chance it's going to rain? Or the sun's going to be out there? So if you're listening to your experts, how accurate are they? But then again, what's the backup plan when they're not right? You know, it's my life in jeopardy, and the same thing with everybody that's sitting here on Old Mill Road, where their water is compromised. If they can't drink it, they can't wash it, then what are we going to do? I mean, we're going to come to your house? Is it an open door policy? You know, Old Mill Road's an open door policy. When somebody's well goes out, hey, come on over, take a shower. You got a shower somewhere. But if all of Old Mill's out, where are we going to go? To the city of Twinsburg? Property values. You guys, it's in your thing, property values. I had a realtor, a friend of mine, look into it. My property, I refinanced my house in 2020. Since 2020, my property has dropped $180,000. Where's that coming from? Is the city going to pay me back on $180,000? I mean, I know I could go and get my taxes readjusted for $180,000 less, but still, I'm out $180,000 from what it originally was. Property values in the city of Twinsburg have not went down. You know, every single house, you could sell a house and put it on the market for $300,000 and sell it for $340,000 right now. I mean, that's everywhere. That's not just in the city of Twinsburg. That's everywhere. I wanted to also say thanks to the council members that did come out and take a look at everything that was out at Project Gumbo and look at the site and everything else like that. And then to hear your guys' comments on things that maybe should be done or things that could be altered or things like that. And I just hope that, you know, while looking at this and before you vote, you think about all the things that you said while you're sitting there, especially you, Scott Park. You were the one who said, hey, be neighborly. Making 2 buildings bigger and destroying a neighbor's house, I don't see that as being neighborly. I don't know if you do, but I sure don't. I don't know if they do either. Dave Post, I asked you at the beginning of it.
Address the chair.
What's that?
I said address the chair. The chair.
Sorry.
Okay.
In a meeting, Dave Post said that when I asked who follows the ordinances, he says, we do. So I guess that we do is everybody's there and following the ordinances what we do. Not what the expert tells you is that this is compliance with the ordinance. You have to look at the ordinance and read the ordinance, and if it, to you, matches the ordinance, then you follow it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, we have Lynn Clark.
Good evening, Lynn Clark, 2485 Old Mill Road, and I'm here to talk about the review process. Now, first of all, tonight there's a resolution, and my comments are somewhat directed towards that, but there's also a thing that I wanted to say beyond that. So first of all, delighted to see the city has finally acknowledged the building height is 35 feet. And very discouraged when I read this resolution saying many of the cities, states, and federal requirements appear to have been ignored in that document, particularly the revised document. So back in engineering school, back when I was a boy, all engineers were trained to show all of their work, all of their calculations, all of their assumptions. This is something to help prepare us for real life, because when I worked for another professional engineer, I was required to show all of that. Every engineer is. Now, I've asked the city engineer 4 times, starting on April 29, May 10, May 27, and June 1st for the review notes associated with this particular project. Now, none of those have ever been responded. None of them. And that's just incomprehensible to me. So without any supporting evidence, it seems that there's just too many data skips and errors. So when information isn't supplied, then there's reason to suspect the worst. If detailed review notes were provided, perhaps many of our concerns could be ameliorated. Now, has City Council been provided with that information? Chairman, do you know? I'm sorry, Sam, you know. So if the support system to the council, to the members of the community, to the citizens, the people that pay the taxes, haven't been met, then how can we expect all of these rules, regulations to have been exhaustively evaluated and compliance adhered to? And I'm not going to go through and enumerate all of the concerns that we've got, but there's a couple of them that deserve a little special highlight. Adjacent zoning, 114903, reads, the industrial district is regulated to be exclusively used for industrial purposes, free from encroachment of residential and commercial development. That's a question going back to the very basic zoning of this particular area. Maybe there's 1 or 2 other areas like it in town. Obviously, very concerned about the environmental assessment. Our chapter 1175 has multiple citations. 01A says maintain natural, hydrologic, and ecological functions of wetlands. We've got wetlands that have already been damaged. Maintain ground and surface water quality and quantity. Now, there's really been very little data that we've seen. We have seen hydrosphere engineering reports saying the recharge for the entire aquifer is 2,190 acres. And that may very well be. However, the people that rely on their wells along Old Mill Road and Mosswood Lane are only concerned about a couple of 100 acres. So I think the statement is totally misleading. And I hope you haven't relied on that in the past. Now, maintaining groundwater and surface water quality. No data has been presented so far to quantify what the existing baseline water quality is, or any kind of evaluation whatsoever on what the future water quality would be. It's absolutely absurd to place the burden of that upon the citizens. That is the expectation the public has. That is what's written into our ordinances that says, you are here to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. Now, goes on to Hydrosphere Engineering estimated in their own 2.5-page report, there would be a breakthrough time from those stormwater retention ponds of the contaminants less than 20 years. Now, all of my neighbors say, we plan to live here until they carry us out feet first. So, another misconception contained in that proposal is relative Ohio EPA approval with respect to groundwater. I spoke with the office chief yesterday here in Nido, and he says there have not been any salient discussions since their hydrogeologist in the district issued his letter April 21 of 2021, over a year ago. There has been no sign-off. There has been no investigation consistent with their recommendations. Now, I'm going to go on to say city engineer doesn't have the appropriate expertise to make judgments relative to hydrogeology. I've asked her multiple times to show me the credentials that she has in that regard, or anybody else within the city. Zero response. Once again, renew the request that I've made multiple times to the city engineer over the last year to hire a premier hydrogeology firm to study this. The risk of making a poor decision is just going to be devastating. Now, there's a couple of other things here. Just going to hit a couple of highlights. One of the...
Mr. Clark, you need to wrap it up.
Thank you, Sam, I will. Okay, key thing. One of the criteria, 117501H, recognize and quantify the fiscal impacts of the proposed development prior to approval. I've had a couple of conversations with our finance director, and when I checked with her 2 weeks ago, she said nothing has come into her in that regard. I appreciate your time and tolerance of me repeating myself once again. Thank you.
Next, we have Michael Turrell.
Good evening, Council, Mayor Interim, Mr. Yates. Mike Turrell, 99304 Forest Lake Drive, Twinsburg, Ohio. I'm talking about Resolution 57, 2022 revised. Resolution confirming the Planning Commission's approval of the final site plan for Project Gumbo, date stamped received May 10, 2022, and declaring an emergency. Who put the emergency on this and why? Who requested it? Who started? I know it's been taken off. I want to know who initiated the process to put it back on again this week when it was taken off at the last meeting. Was there discussion or?
You know the rule, Mike. You go ahead and say your...
Okay, well, no, we're allowed to have a back and forth at caucus, aren't we?
We can.
We can. You don't have to. You guys can, you know.
Give everybody an opportunity.
You guys can choose not to answer me until I leave the podium, and that's okay, but you can choose to answer people, as you do. And so this is the opportunity that we get to have a conversation instead of a presentation, and then I sit down there, bite my teeth sometimes. But who put I want to know who put it on and why? Why was this emergency clause put on?
Mr. Zan, want to talk?
Anybody have anything? Someone, who was the person? Who was the first person that said, hey, we should make this an emergency?
I was the first person that said.
Okay, thank you. Wow, someone who's got some guts. Thank you, Ms. Mueller. I appreciate you.
If I,
So you put that on.
excuse me, if I may chime in, the emergency clause wasn't officially removed at the last meeting, so it's still on the resolution, but we'll be taking that
Well, I
off.
was taken off that night. I always seem to remember it pretty.
No, I believe there was a comment made by,
So it's,
all right.
but then it was put back on, regardless,
No,
or it's
that's
still writing.
not what I
but
said.
It's very deceiving because we can type these things up at the drop of a hat. And you guys have put emergency clauses on resolutions at a meeting without it being typed up, and voted on emergency and push it through and voted
Yeah,
on that
that's
resolution
correct.
as an emergency. Maybe not you haven't been here that long, but I've seen it happen a lot of times.
yeah, that's done by a
And so
motion to
this
add
is
on an emergency clause.
that just didn't get taken off. But regardless.
No, it will be taken off later, as
so-
you have been informed earlier. I believe that's been
Should not
mentioned.
even been printed on here, but I don't know all your stuff. But this is my favorite part here. Section 3, that this resolution is hereby declared to be an emergency measure necessary for the immediate preservation of public peace, health, safety, welfare, and convenience of the citizens of the city of Twinsburg. These people all behind me don't look very peaceful. They don't look very happy. They look pretty much at edge. And then they get this emergency clause thing thrown at them again. The safety. They're worried about their drinking water. They're worried about being able to bathe. If their drinking water goes down, there's no backup plan. Well, you guys got to wait till we figure something out. There should be that plan in effect. Convenience. I don't see anything how pushing something through at an emergency is convenient. So remember that. prayer that we said last week, let us make no decisions that are self-serving, but those that are good for all of the community. Right? Is that emergency clause any kind of a good for anyone in the community? But it's really cool. The next sentence in the resolution says, and for the additional reason that the developer is facing a construction schedule. Got an interesting story in that. I built my house over in where I live, not necessarily Gumbo Preserve, but everybody thinks it is and whatever. I started the process in January of 2007. I got plans. I tried it in 2005, went through all the stuff with the city, looked at the numbers, woo, scary, scary, put it away. 2 years later, we revisited it and we went for it. So we started everything. We had everything all together, plug and play. I had to go to a few meetings for the ARB. I don't think I had anything with the BZA because it was proper zoning and all of that, or planning or anything. Showed them my plans. They loved everything. I didn't break ground until November. From January until November, I did not get my building permit to stick a shovel in the dirt. That was not very convenient for me at all, let me tell you, because that was in the housing crunch of 07, and I put my house up for sale. It sold in 2 weeks, and I had to move in with my father-in-law. Not at all convenient. But nobody thought about putting an emergency thing together for me, for my convenience, to build my stuff that is not affecting anybody else. Matter of fact, I could have put 10 homes on my property. Well, that would have been tight, but I could have jammed those cluster homes in there. But I could have put that many homes instead. I built one home, and I preserved the peace of the neighbors. And I built within the community. So why are we so concerned about someone who is just coming into town and building a project for their convenience, for their schedule? What about the people who elected you guys? Or maybe they didn't vote for you, but you guys ward over them, you represent them. What about their convenience? What about their safety? What about their health and their welfare? Mark just said that his house value dropped like crazy. That is not taking care of your people. Who's going to start taking care of the little guys once in a while? When are we going to start taking care of our people and stop siding and working for the developers every damn time? Thank you.
Next, we have Sally Gadash. At the regular meeting? Okay. That's all we have then this evening.
Okay. Let's move on to pending legislation. We have ordinance 56, 2022. Excuse me, this ordinance will be on its third and final reading tonight. It's to amend the policy for contracts or capital improvement projects between $25,000 to less than $50,000 to have the mayor obtain 3 quotes with few exceptions. Any further discussion on this ordinance tonight? Next, we have Resolution 57, 2022. This resolution is regarding the approval of the final site plan for the Gumbo project. There have been some revisions to this. At this time, Mr. Zan, would you like to get any?
Thank you. Yes, and I apologize. I think both of the things I was going to note have already come up. But first off, the height, the proposed height is 35 feet with a development that is in conformity with the code. And secondly, as was actually just discussed, at the meeting 3 weeks ago, the council expressed the desire to remove the emergency clause from the legislation. I wanted to make sure that I drew attention to that tonight before we move into the regular meeting and the legislative agenda. That you should do that. That should be done through a motion where you move to remove the emergency clause that was originally put on. So add that to restate the height is 35 feet, and also please remove the emergency clause. That's my reminder to the council.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Council, anything? All right, next we have Ordinance 61, 2022. This ordinance is regarding the approval of the 2023 tax budget. It will be read 3 times and then passed on emergency on the third and final reading. to be able to get to the county by July 15th deadline. Any questions? Next, we have Resolution 62, 2022. This resolution is to enter into a renewal agreement on behalf of the city of Twinsburg through Love Insurance Agency for the purpose of liability and property insurance through the Ohio plan. Mrs. Twinsburg, do you have anything to add?
The Ohio plan, we shopped around our property and casualty policy this year, and that came back with the best pricing, and we also get a 50% reimbursement on our Lexipol costs. So that was the best deal for us to move forward.
Any questions, council? Discussion? All right, next we have Ordinance 63, 2022. This ordinance is an appropriations amendment for multiple funds. The first one is to reappropriate funds to purchase a CERT trailer from 2021 budget that was not spent. Any questions on that?
No.
Second one is to increase the revenue and expense budget for additional reimbursement funding for police officers' vests. Lieutenant Donato was able to get vest with the grant, which covered 50% of the cost. Questions there? The third one is to appropriate funds for the approved OPWC grants for Phase 2 Ethan's Green Sewer Outfall Lining that Amy talked about, as she's talked about it over the last couple of meetings. Loan application was passed by council through Resolution 7121. The project, $550,000 project with the $250,000 grant. Any discussion there? Next, we'll move on to Resolution 64, 2022. This resolution is to enter into MOU with the fire captains regarding holidays and salaries. This will include the Juneteenth holiday, as with other contracts, along with locking in salary increases for the next year. Any further discussion on that? And finally, we have Ordinance 65, 2022. This ordinance is to amend Section 1519.04 of the codified ordinances of the city of Twinsburg to prohibit the discharge, ignition, or explosion of fireworks at all times and dates, including certain days each year according to state law. This will be on an emergency tonight, so it can take an effect prior to the state law. Mr. Banana, anything to add?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Scafidi. Just for all those in attendance tonight, I think it'd be prudent to orient everyone to the purposes behind this ordinance. So House Bill 172 was passed by the Ohio GA, and essentially what it did is carved out 10 days when fireworks could be legally discharged within the state of Ohio. Currently, as it stands, the city of Twinsburg bans the discharge of fireworks. The legislation that's before the council tonight would essentially restate or opt out of the state legislation that's carved out 10 days upon which one can legally launch fireworks. As Mr. Scafidi pointed out, this legislation, should council choose to pass it, needs to be passed this evening because the state law is going to affect July 1 for the upcoming July 4th holiday. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion, council? That's it. Next, we'll move on to miscellaneous. Anybody have anything on miscellaneous?
No.
Just real quick, there was a fourth item on that appropriation amendment, the sanitary sewer laterals project at Glenwood for $150,000.
Got it. Thank you. Sorry, I missed that.
I do have one question.
Okay.
Mr. Fasana, about the fireworks ordinance.
Yes.
If we were to pass this evening, would that mean that events such as, I know there's a Rock the Park, Twins Days, would those still have opportunities to get some sort of exception, or like what does that look like?
That's a great question, and excuse me for forgetting to mention that. The city of Twinsburg still provides for the professional discharge of fireworks within the city. So Mr. Bellin brings up a great fun example for the city with some of the family and community events that are held throughout the year. Fireworks can still be discharged. This is strictly limited to private discharge, for example, on your own personal property, that isn't done by someone who's licensed as a professional fireworks discharge entity. But great
Thank you.
question.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I did further ask the fire chief if someone wanted to on their own do it, is there a permit available? And it's only for professionals to
Okay.
let off.
Okay.
Bring that up, council. Anybody have anything else on miscellaneous? Okay, then we are going to adjourn for about 5 minutes. Anybody wishing to speak at the regular council meeting, please come up to the podium and sign in, and we'll see you back here in 5 minutes.